The elation was so great on Friday. It filled me up. It was almost painful. It's taken really every day. Today, I'm just very happy because I'm calm enough to realize what she did. I'd like to give the money to something Donald Trump hates. If it will cause him pain for me to give money to certain things, that's my intent. Well, perhaps a fund for the women who have been sexually assaulted by Donald Trump.
Hi again, everyone. It's 5 o'clock in New York. I'm Ali Velshi in for Nicole Wallace. When E. Jean Carroll brought her defamation case against former President Trump, she said it was about getting her name back, getting her reputation back. It was taking a stand to say that Donald Trump could not just utter whatever he wanted without consequence. There needed to be accountability. And that accountability came in the form of $83.3 million, the amount the jury decided that Trump must pay Carroll after just 3 hours of deliberation, hitting the ex-president where it hurts, in his wallet. Friday's verdict was a financial blow to Trump, but not one to bankrupt a man who says his wealth is in the billions. But it also comes at a time when any day now we could hear the verdict in the civil fraud trial, where the New York Attorney General is seeking a whopping $370 million from Trump and his business, and where he has already been found liable for fraud, meaning the former president could lose almost $500 million in a very short span of time, not accounting for appeals. As the New York Times reports, quote, together, the judgments might deliver a punishing 1-2 punch to the former president, a financial threat unlike any he has experienced in decades, end quote. The Times adds, quote, if Mr. Trump suddenly owes hundreds of millions of dollars, he might have to sell much of his investment portfolio or other assets, end quote. Friday's decision seems to have made an impact, at least for the moment. At a campaign stop this weekend, Trump did not go after Carroll directly. He only made a small reference to, quote, what happened on Friday, end quote. Whether that silence will remain, we will see.
If you're confident he won't do it again, what happens if he does?
I can't be confident about anything Donald Trump does.
All options are on the table.
What does that mean?
If we have to bring another case, we'll bring another case. He's just going to be more money.
And that is where we start this hour with the Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times investigative reporter Russ Buettner, plus First Amendment scholar and senior visiting research fellow with Columbia University, Ronell Anderson-Jones, in person. Very nice to see you right here in the flesh. And with me at the table for the hour, the host of the podcast Fast Politics and the special correspondent for Vanity Fair and a newly minted MSNBC political analyst, our friend Molly Jong-Fast. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for being with us. Molly, I want to start with you because you have a personal connection to E. Jean Carroll. I want you to just tell us a little bit about that personal connection, because Molly Jong, your mother and E. Jean Carroll represent something to you.
Yeah, and I met E. Jean through my mother. My mother wrote Fear of Flying, was a second-wave feminist, is the very same generation as E. Jean, this generation that fought for reproductive freedom, that fought so hard for Roe. And my mother used to tell me 1973 was a demarcation line in her life. You know, she got bodily autonomy, right? They got the rights over their own bodies. It was a sea change culturally. And then Donald Trump, a contemporary of theirs, someone they even, both of them knew, went to parties with, were in the same gossip columns, you know, very much similar crowd. He appointed 3 far-right justices. He said he was going to do it in the hopes of overturning Roe, and they overturned Roe, and they lost that bodily autonomy for their daughters, which they had fought so hard for. And so I do think when I look at E. Jean Carroll, I think of my mom, and I think of me, and I think, you know, when Trump became president, there was a wave of racism and sexism and misogyny. And when E. Jean got this victory, it was like, women matter. We really matter.
Russ, let's talk a little bit about the money situation. It's complicated, right? In most people's case, if they got a judgment against them for $83.3 million, it would be the end. The interesting part about this is we're discussing whether that's actually the end or whether another $370 million will be the end. What's your sense of the impact of this judgment, assuming it stands?
Well, it's always kind of a moving target, trying to figure out how much cash Donald Trump might have on hand. And I say that having seen 20 plus years of his tax returns and his father's financial records, it's not going to be a happy day if he has to pay that. But I would look back at some of the records that were filed in the court case that support the things that we also saw in his tax returns. In 2016, he told Deutsche Bank, according to his court records, that he had total cash on hand in his businesses and his personal accounts of $114 million. So, and his businesses were cash flow negative at that point in time. He was having to put money into them each year to support them. So that doesn't sound very good. Like right now, he might have an extra $80 million sitting around that he could pay for a bond for this judgment. But he did have some influxes over the last couple of years as well. He sold the old post office hotel in Washington, D.C., an investment he doesn't control, but is one of the best that he has. Refinanced a couple of the buildings that it owned. That could have created a windfall for him. So it's where you meet sort of the intersection of the cash-hungry nature of the businesses he runs. They generally, the business he runs himself, don't cover their own expenses, and he's had to put money into them over the years, matched with money he gets from things that he doesn't really control. And over the last 10 years, like the money he got from The Apprentice and licensing deals fell from a high of $51 million, according to our analysis, in 2011, I believe, to almost nothing by the time he was in the White House. That left a gaping hole in his balance sheet every year. That's what's at the center of a lot of this lawsuit. So it's going to be a big impact, Ali. The degree of how big of an impact is not clear. If this judgment comes in from the state attorney general's case at $370 million, I think that's a really hard hit that would certainly wipe out all of the cash he has on hand and probably require the sale of some of his assets to fill in the holes.
Ronell, the lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, who was on with E. Jean Carroll, had made the point to the jury, and she'd said before, the point here is to do something that will make Donald Trump stop. You're an expert at speech and free speech. And the last time Donald Trump had a decision against him with respect to E. Jean Carroll, I think it was less than 24 hours before he was already talking about her. Do you believe this will have the impact that Roberta Kaplan hoped it would?
Well, it's a really hard thing to guess, in part because we've entered into this really strange new era in which defamers seem not to be deterred in the way that libel law expects them to be. We wouldn't have expected that 24 hours after a $5 million libel verdict, we would have him on national television digging in and doubling down on the lie. Libel law doesn't account for that. It imagines a situation
you will take the lesson.
That you will stop from the feedback of that. And so this sort of will he or won't he that's on everyone's mind at the moment is really quite a new phenomenon. We kind of have assumed all along that libel law will continue to do the jobs for us that we expect it to do, that not just remedying reputational harm, but also correcting the public record and deterring the defamer from saying the lie again and again in the aftermath. But that really presupposes a defendant who is chastised.
Right.
And it also
has some shame.
Also presupposes a defendant who doesn't have political or profit motives or incentives that are stronger than the incentive to stop sharing the lie. And it also presupposes a lot about all of us as audiences. It presupposes that we will value truth when it is found through information that is provable and relevant in a court, and that we want to have a shared objective reality. So this new space is a really complicated one. We're making predictions on the basis of a new libel framework, and I think we can't be certain whether the next libelous repeat of that comment is just around the corner.
Interesting that Roberta Kaplan says if he does it again, we'll just go after him again. These two trials, which didn't seem to, I think, the general public as important as the 4 criminal trials, do so much more than threaten to take away Donald Trump's liberty. They take away his creation myth.
Right.
They take away his imagery, both of them. The fraud trial, in which Judge Engoron says you're a fraud, you're built on a house of cards, and then this one, because he has constantly talked about women in remarkably disparaging ways. Every time somebody has accused him of sexual assault, he's associated that with what they look like or why he wouldn't have gone for them. Both of these things hurt Donald Trump in some ways where it really hurts.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And I would say that I think Donald Trump's whole play here has been a mistake for him. So he has really done this as candidate Trump as opposed to defendant Trump. So he's out there bragging about how much money he has. That's candidate Trump, right? He's using these trials as campaign rallies. But the problem is candidate Trump does not serve defendant Trump. So when he's bragging about how rich he is, that's why these judgments keep going up.
Right.
And I think
because juries hear him. He had a deposition in April in which he talks about how much cash he's gotten, how much money he's gotten, how big his assets are. The jury heard that.
Yeah, and I think he's really played it wrong. And I don't think he realized that the court has really been the one place where he just can't get away with it.
Sex. Relinquish what remains of the Allspark.
So who's the insect? You? What? Who's the insect?
Protect you. They were defeated on our world. And we will defeat them here.
This was just a diversion. Security, please bring up. Rabbit, she's already inside. Deeds! Give me an update on that reserve. Boss readiness. What was his name? What was it?
Evac, sir.
Right, evac.
She's right in front.
We're facing a heavy sustained attack. They appear to be after the Allspark. General!